I'm Stephanie. I'm a Foreign Service Specialist and I'm a construction engineer. I was born in Canada to American parents, so I have dual Canadian citizenship. I graduated from Texas A&M University with a degree in civil engineering, and after that I worked in the private sector for a while. I won't say I never thought about the State Department. They came to Texas A&M for a recruiting fair, but they seemed to only be looking for electrical engineers at the time. I happened to read about the State Department again in a little blurb at the back of my Professional Society magazine. There was a little ad that said, "Would you like to travel overseas? Do you want to support our diplomatic missions abroad? Contact us." And so I did, and that brought me to the State Department 5 years ago as a civil servant. I was a civil engineer for 3 years within our Bureau of Overseas Buildings Operations, and after a year or so I realized there actually was a specialty of construction engineering. Our job overseas as a construction engineer is to oversee and manage the contractor who builds our embassies. We basically make sure that the U.S. government gets what it pays for. We do, in some parts, do inspections, but it's mostly for a quality assurance aspect. There is a fair amount of walking around in the dirt and the mud and around the concrete. But a lot of it's a managerial job. You oversee a staff of site engineers who review shop drawings and submittals, and it definitely takes the managerial side that you have to, as an engineer, sort of think with the other side of your brain and get into the managerial aspects of it. You need to be able to work with people from other cultures, because as a construction engineer overseas, you're going to be working with engineers from the local, from the host country, and they know the local host country requirements that you don't know, and perhaps the construction practices that the local workers will be using that you're not aware of. So it helps to have an understanding of how other people work and how you can facilitate things without getting too much into the weeds of the technical aspect, because that's the contractor's job and that's the designer of record's job, but you're there to make sure that you interpret the contract requirements for the contractor and that you ensure that the project continues smoothly. With the earthquake in Haiti, the embassy there was one of the few buildings that was basically untouched. I understand the damage that it received was only superficial. We still had electricity with our generators, we still had clean water, we had a structurally sound building, and that was a big success because that was the prime example of why the U.S. Embassy is there. They were there to help the host country rebuild, and they're still serving that function. I look forward to the chance to represent the cultural ideals of the United States and to show women overseas that the United States is a place that supports equality for women, and that women can be in fields like engineering and construction, and that it's important for women to be in the workforce the same as men.